Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. This is the Group of Five Deep Dive. I'm your co-host, Mike Calabrese, and the Dan Lefevre to my Michael the Burner Turner, Mike Ianiello here in the flesh, along with our stat sheet stuffer. I guess if I had to give you a player of Mac lore, I'll go Khalil Mack for Stuckey. I feel like you are outsized talent here playing in the G5 podcast. So this is a fun conference.
It feels good. It's second day in a row. I'm a guest on the college podcast, which I've been recording college podcasts for Action. Before it was Action Network, Sports Action when we first started for 6 years now. And yesterday was the first time I was a guest on the college, and you did a good job, and it felt good. So I'm glad to be back to talk maction, every degenerate's favorite conference.
Ianiello, what are your thoughts on getting into maction long before they move the action to Tuesday nights?
Yeah, I mean, the maction I think is every gambler's favorite conference. I don't know about you guys, but I actually feel like it's my favorite to bet on week to week, but my least favorite to bet on from a futures perspective, because you just go into everything being like, who the hell knows? I mean, 8 of the 12 teams in the MAC have a win total at either 5.5 or 6.5. So it is just any of them could go bowling, any of them could be really good, any of them could be really bad. We don't know. But it is an honor to be joined by Stuckey. If you guys haven't read his Mac manifesto, I'm pretty sure that's actually the first time I found Action Network was Stuckey's Mac manifesto.
It is I should get a bonus then for
you should. You get commission,
but that's basically like a referral. And yeah, I actually love the fact. I mean, I spent a lot of time in the Mac. I love it, and all the conference realignment stuff. Just I don't care. Just don't take away the Mac and don't take away weekday Mac. But I actually love the uncertainty. And this is the conference, and we'll get into it, to take shots. 2 years ago, I hit Ball State 14-1. Last year, should have hit Kent State. I got them 15-1. And that damn Northern Illinois team got me for like the 50th time in the conference championship, despite being an underdog. This is the conference to throw darts in, because you can see Central Michigan like 3 years ago, when new coach won it, I think 2019, they were 50-1 preseason to win the MAC. So, we'll get into some potential darts. I have one that I already fired. I'm excited to talk some action.
Stuckey just alluded to it with the conference realignment, UCLA in the Big Ten, Oklahoma to be in the SEC. I feel like in the same way that archaeologists dig through a city, and then they're like, oh, if we go another 10 feet down, there's a perfectly intact city right below that. That is the MAC. It's the same teams. There's no one getting plucked, no one getting added in. There's always some rumors, year over year that Western Kentucky or Middle Tennessee are going to join. Not this year. So we got these 12 teams. Let's hop into it, starting with the West. You mentioned that it's a wide open conference, Ianiello. Well, let's start with the best of the best. Toledo, win total set at 8.5. The unders juiced at -120, 3-1 to win the MAC. SP plus offensive efficiency, 87th. I think that's doing them a disservice. 25th on the defensive side of the ball. And I'll run through kind of their overview quickly here. 8 return on offense, 7 on defense, nearly upset Notre Dame last fall. In my opinion, this running game could be special. They have a veteran O-line, a really nice running back room, made only stronger by the addition of Penny Boone, a transfer from Maryland, who could be a nice goal line option at 6'1", 245. And then, you have DeQuan Finn, who accounted for, no problem, 27 total touchdowns against 3 total turnovers last year. If there was ever an offense to carry Jason Candle across the threshold, get him that MAC championship, this is it. The defense last year was great against the pass, at least, and that was because of their pass rush, 3 sacks per game, 18th nationally. Jamal Hines, Desjuan Johnson are back to rack up more pressure. And what I like, in college football, particularly at the G5 level, it's rare that you get that de facto preseason. They get Long Island, go Sharks, then UMass as a preseason, then at Ohio State, at San Diego State. If they can win at San Diego State, a 3-1 start, I think, absolutely bodes well for a 9 or 10 win season, has that in the bag, and no Miami of Ohio in the crossover. So I'll kick it to you first, Stuckey. Are you as bullish on the Rockets here, or do you think it's just going to be one of those crazy MAC seasons where the favorites, kind of fall back to the middle of the pack?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of the top teams from last year, which we'll talk about, Central Michigan, Kent State, Western Michigan, are going to take a step back because of roster turnover. But I don't think Toledo is one of those teams. Last year, they won 7 games despite everything going against them. They were 0-5, I believe, in one possession games. Their 3 league losses all came by 3 points or less. So they also lost by 3 at Notre Dame in a game they probably should have won. They were 105th and fourth down conversion percentage. They were dead last in the country in penalty yards per game. Their kicker Clucky had an off year. Everything went wrong for them. And then all their wins were in blowout fashion. And then all their losses, outside of a really just a stinker against Colorado State, were by like 3 points. And if you look at just lead the nation in penalty yards, 10 of 24 on fourth down. In comparison, Northern Illinois was 25 of 30 on fourth downs. All those things, and you lose all the close games. The margins were so close for them. I have them favored in 11 games. I have them favored at San Diego State. Obviously, Ohio State is going to be a loss. But yeah, I think this team, I love the over 8. I think it opened actually at 7.5, which was way too low. I think this is a 9 or 10 win team for sure. And I have them 6 games as they in conference, just in conference. I have them favored in all 8, 6 of them double-digit favorites. Now, last year they lost 4 games as double-digit favorites. I don't see that happening again. Defense loaded once again. They did lose 2 D-backs to the NFL, but Tyson Anderson barely played, hurt all year. Defense still should be loaded. The offense was much better with Finn at the helm. His second year in the offense, he'll get the reins here. I think this is Toledo's year. 10-win team. Love the over 8. One of my 2 favorite win total bets in the MAC.
All right, clean sweep here, Ianiello. You on the Rockets over win total as well?
Yep, I like the Rockets too. Like you guys said, I think they have the best defense in the conference. I don't really think it's close. I actually had higher expectations for them last year. Kind of messed around, lost a lot of close games, lost some bad games. The Colorado State loss was brutal. And you guys mentioned it. I think Finn's the difference. He's the presumed starter. He's got this is his team now. He really didn't take over as the full-time guy until like week 6 last year. They were working in Carter Bradley a lot, who's now off to, where did he go? South Alabama, I believe. So now, this is Finn's team. And yeah, they lose Bryant Koback, but like you said, they have a deep running back room. Their defense brings back 8. So I think it's their conference to lose. Given how the MAC goes, that probably means they won't win it, but I definitely like that over 8 as well.
All right, we'll switch to a team that won every close game last year. Northern Illinois, 7 wins as the win total plus 430 to win the MAC, 57th offensively, 118th SP plus defensive projection. As I mentioned, the Heart Attack Huskies are back after winning 8 games by single digits in 2021. Offense should be strong on the ground again. Rocky Lombardi chips in there as a dual threat. Harrison Whaley's back. Mason Blackmore pitching in, 4 returning starters in the O-line. But for me, the defense is a huge question mark. Yes, they have 8 returning starters on that side of the ball, but they were awful last year. The entire secondary is back, but they were only 84th against the pass. They were young. So, I mean, you could look at it with rose-colored glasses and say, that experience is going to pay off, maybe get them into the 60s against the pass. But really, in terms of my play here, plus 430 doesn't interest me. Anything shy of like 7-1, I'm not going to play the Huskies to win the entire conference. But when I look at their win total, Eastern Illinois at home, at Tulsa, Vandy at home, at Kentucky, and then in MAC play, they get Toledo, Central, and Miami all at home. So I do think the absolute floor for them this year, even though they were so good in close games, so good on fourth down, they almost won their bowl game as well, couldn't punch it in inside the 10 in the closing seconds. All of that being said, this schedule, I see their floor at like 6 games. I think they're probably coming in at 8-4. So I lean to the over, but I'm not as bullish as I was on Toledo. Stuckey, what are your thoughts on the Huskies trying to at least use last year as a springboard and to say, we weren't lucky. It was just, we have experience. We can handle the pressure of close games, because we're going to talk about a team in the East who lost every close game that are projected to win their side of the division this year. Sometimes it comes down to like, are you just bad in close games, or are you good and not really a luck factor? Let me pitch it to you with that question.
Yeah, I really don't know. I was all set. Northern Illinois under. Like, if you asked me right when the season ended, I hate that team to death. And my number just didn't get there. Because I'm conflicted in what's going to happen here, right? Like, they were extremely lucky. Like, they won 5 games by 2 or less who were in overtime. 5. And they were 25 of 30 on fourth downs, which led the nation. They're 84% on fourth downs. And you're winning every close game. And then, say that goes to like 15 of 30. All those close wins swing to losses this year. But then again, they only had 1 interception from their D-backs. They were the second youngest team in the country last year. And they were like 103rd in turnover margin. So I don't know. So they're much more experienced. This is a super young team. I mean, 2 years ago it was all freshmen. So I don't know. I think that the number is about right. I was all set to, and this is why you can't be biased, and which is where it comes in handy to project these things. So yeah, I was all about the under, but I just can't get there. I think the number is right at about 7. And yeah, it's like there's going to be some regression, but then also they're much more experienced than Mac. So I don't know. Don't ask me. This team owned me last year, but the defense definitely would be my concern. Go to Ianiello here because this team.
I know Ianiello that it's difficult to be objective because you have such a man crush on Rocky Lombardi. Just love the guy. You're pumping his tires all last season. So where do you come down on Northern Illinois?
I refuse to talk about this team. I hate this team. I hate everything about them. They lost me so much goddamn money last year. Anyone who listens to our podcast knows Northern Illinois made me look like such an idiot, and I refuse to speak about them.
There's so many plays that I'm like, I
hate
like
them.
Buffalo in overtime at the 1, fumbles it going into the end zone, game over. Like there are a million plays, a million fourth down conversions. Didn't
Central Michigan miss like 3 chip shot field goals in that game?
Yeah, then they botched the snap on a field goal to win it. They had
from like the 20. I hate Northern Illinois. I hate them.
All right, I just heard a Chips reference, so let's go to Central Michigan. They're also sitting at 7 for their win total, plus 450 or 5-1, depending on the book, to win the MAC. 74th on offense, I think that's too low. 113th on defense, I think that's fair in the SP plus projection. Listen, their big 3 is really solid by G5 standards. Daniel Richardson, Lou Nichols III, and Dallas Dixon. I mean, that's a great offensive foundation, particularly Nichols. He ran off Kobe Lewis to Purdue because this guy could run for 2,000 yards this season. He's that good. But the defense only brings back 3 starters from a unit that was great against the run, but they have all these new pieces in the front 7. So the only strength that they had, can you really rely on that? And then you look at the non-conference, they're going to go 2-2, by all accounts. At Oklahoma State, home against South Alabama, home against Bucknell, then at Penn State. No Miami, but there are some difficult road matchups, particularly at Northern Illinois and at Toledo. This is a stay away for me. I think just from a college fantasy perspective, I'll be interested, particularly in Richardson and Nichols III. But outside of that, I think this defense has too many question marks to feel good tying your money up for an entire season. This could be one of the half teams of the MAC. Great offense, bad defense. I'll start with you, Ianiello. What are your thoughts on the Chippewas?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this number is about right. First, Daniel Richardson is one of my favorite players to watch in the country. He's one of those, MAC cult heroes that we'll talk about for years to come. Last year, he didn't really take over to week 5. They started with Jacob Sermon, and he came in 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He's like a little bowling ball, 5'10", 204 pounds. He reminds me of like if Raymond Felton played college football. And that's what he looks like. I just love everything about Daniel Richardson. Kobe Lewis leaving was kind of a bummer because I was really excited to see him and Nichols in this backfield together. But you mentioned it. There's just way too many holes on this defense. They lose a lot on the offensive line and the defensive line, which are 2 places you really don't want to lose people. They lose their 5 leading tacklers. Like you said, they're an over team. They lost their 2 best tackles to 2 tackles
to the NFL
out of a MAC, and I think it was Bernard Raymond was he 2nd round pick, late 1st,
Mm-hmm.
and then so they just lost a ton of really, really talented guys. So they're definitely a watch and have a lot of fun with Richardson and Nichols, but I don't have anything betting wise.
How about you, Stuckey? Any play here?
Yeah, I think the number's spot on. I am curious to see how much their offense does drop off with losing 2 NFL tackles. Like by some metrics, those were like 2 of the best tackles in the country last year. And what does that do to a MAC offense? I think they're going to have a freshman and a sophomore starting at both tackle positions. They also lost some decent linebackers and then 2 really good edge rushers. And that was the strength of their defense last year, was their edge rush. So there's, I do think they have a free safety, I think, named Stuckey. That's close enough to Stuckey. I think there's actually a guard that transferred to UNLV this year that's named Stuckey that came from like Sacramento State, I want to say. I almost bet a little bit of money on UNLV over just because of that, to root for this guard named Stuckey. But yeah, a lot of questions about the defense, and then the offense losing those 2 tackles gives me a lot of pause. If I had to bet it, I would take the under, but I think the number is pretty spot on to pass for me.
So now we're off to Western Michigan, sitting at 6 for their win total, 12 to win the MAC, 96 offensive projection, and 86 on defense. It's back to square one on offense. No Caleb Ellaby, no Sky Moore. I mean, potentially look out for Stone Hollenbach, a transfer from, he was like a preferred walk-on at Alabama. Could make a move in fall practice for QB1. 6 back on defense from a really nice pass defense, to be honest. But personnel-wise, it's almost an entirely new secondary. And then circle in their non-conference at Michigan State versus Pitt, at San Jose State. I'm playing the under here. I think it's just a little too challenging with all these new faces and to not get any momentum in the non-conference. Too many negatives working against them here. So somebody has to lose games here in the West, and I'm going to go with the Broncos. What are your thoughts, Stuckey?
Love this under. So this is my second favorite win total. Toledo over and Western Michigan under. I think as of yesterday, you could find under 6.5 minus 140, minus 145. It was starting to get hit yesterday. Still like under 6, but I would pay the extra 45 cents for 6.5. Right. Whenever it's around 6, a win total, I prefer to pay, up a little bit more than I would say around 5, because that 6 is usually like a big motivating factor to get to bowl eligibility at the end of the year. And then if you can't get there, a team might quit. So that around 6, sometimes I pay a little bit more. And yeah, I mean, look, you have a new offensive coordinator and you lose out your star quarterback, Ellaby. Sky Moore went to second round of the NFL draft, one of the best receivers in the country last year. You also, you lose your stud center, Caliendo. You might start an FCS transfer and a converted tight end at your tackle positions. Only 36 career starts coming back on the offensive line. And your starting quarterback's either going to be a Bama walk-on transfer or a redshirt freshman. This offense has major questions. The defense, linebackers strong, but look, last year the pass defense was good, but lost a lot in the secondary, and they lost MAC Defensive Player of the Year, who was responsible for, I think, like 15 of their 43 sacks. So there's going to be a drop-off here as well, and we know the special teams will be an absolute horror show. Worst in the country last year, just incompetence across the board on special teams. So, and this is a regression candidate, too. I think they went 3-1, one in possession games. They were number 2 in the country in third down defense. They had 6 or 7 defensive and special teams touchdowns, and their defense was especially helped out by the fact that their offense was number 1 in the country in time of possession, right? So you have Sky Moore, Ellaby, that offensive line. They led the nation. I think they were top 5 in time of possession. That's not going to be the case this year. With your freshman tackles, a freshman quarterback or transfer, you lose Sky Moore. So I have a ton of questions about this team. And look, if I look at their schedule, you get a free win over New Hampshire, but you got road games against Michigan State and San Jose State off of a bye, by the way. They also host Pitt, but Pitt out for revenge after last year's loss at home to West Michigan, which might have arguably kept Pitt out of the college football playoff. I'm sure they'll be out for blood, and their toughest league games come at the end of the season, which could be beneficial since they're breaking a new quarterback, new offense. But I have them double-digit underdogs, projected double-digit underdogs in 3 MAC games and 6 total. So if they lose those 6 games, their ceiling is 6. I only have them favored in 2, and 2 of the MAC games, and 2 of the others are coin flips. So I think, even if they start 4-3, which is best case scenario, which means, you win at Ball State, you beat New Hampshire, you beat Eastern Michigan at home, and you beat Ohio, which is best case scenario, then they'd have to win 3 of their final 5 games to get to 7. Of those 5, I've projected double-digit underdogs in 4. And the other one's a road game at Bowling Green. It's the MAC's unpredictable, but I do not see 7 wins on this schedule whatsoever. And I think they're going to really struggle to get to the 6. There's a lot not to like about this Western Michigan team. I'm going under here.
So Ianiello, are you going to give the rubber stamp here on the under? Is the road just too treacherous to get to 6 wins for this Western team?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. There's just way too much to replace with, Ellaby, Sky Moore. I mean, Jalen Hall's gone. Bryce Nearly's gone. Like Stock mentioned, the defense, the line. And yeah, my favorite part about this team is, Stuckey mentioned it. The special teams were so bad. They have the same dude doing the kicking and the punting, and he's horrible at both of them. So it's kind of like, and they're bringing it back. It's like they couldn't find someone better to do either. So I think this team is, they're going to take a big step back. So I'm definitely with you guys on the under there.
All right, quickly for the rest of the West here, I'm going to bundle the bottom 2 teams that I feel diametrically opposed in terms of where I think they'll end this year. Eastern sitting at 5.5 for their win total, 16-1 to win the MAC, 77th defensive projection or offensive projection, 123rd on defense. Taylor Powell, a 3-star who's been everywhere, been at Mizzou, been at Troy, hasn't caught on. He should be their projected starter. Love this wide receiver core headlined by Hassan Badoun. They could really have some punch on that side of the ball. Defense was normal by MAC standards, and by that I mean normal bad. They only returned 5 starters, but they did go heavy in the transfer portal to try to bring in G5 and P5 transfers to really elevate that defense. The schedule, I think, is interesting because they get Eastern at home, then at Louisiana, who's breaking in a new quarterback, at Arizona State that returns just 6 starters, and then against UMass. So I feel for sure there's 2 wins there. At Louisiana, at Arizona State, I don't know. I have this feeling that something may come together on the offensive side of the ball for Eastern. So I'm bullish on them. I also, as Stuckey brought up, you got to have one long shot in the MAC, at least in your portfolio. This is mine. I've also seen it out in the market at 20-1. Certainly interested at 20-1 to win the MAC. So that's my pick here. And then as we look at Ball State, 4.5 for their win total, 60-1 to win the MAC. Really, really poor projections on both sides of the ball, 115th on O, 116th on D. Listen, we're not that far removed from a 7-1 season in 2020 with a bowl win, but they just got murdered last year by Georgia State in the bowl game. I think that kind of left a sour taste in my mouth, at least. They only returned 9 total starters. They have some good receivers, Johannes Tyler being one of them, but a new starting quarterback, likely John Paddock, an undersized senior who's, kind of rode the pine for all these years. The defense was bad last year, could be worse when you consider the schedule. Just looking at the for sure losses at Tennessee, at Central, at Kent, at Toledo, at Miami of Ohio. And then for the games that I feel good about their wins, Murray State, at Georgia Southern, home against UConn, home against Ohio. That only gets you to 4. No room to stumble against Ohio or at Georgia Southern. Statesboro, not an easy place to play. I realize that they have a new system, a new head coach there. So I'm probably going to go under on the Cardinals. What are your thoughts on these 2 teams, the Eagles and Cardinals, side by side? Any birds that you'd like to roll with here, Ianiello?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I had one I was gonna dip my toe in and get the feel of the group, and now I'm with you. I like the Eastern Michigan. I'm bullish on them. I think they lose both Preston Hutchinson and Ben Bryant, but like you said, Taylor Powell's been around the block. He started at Missouri, went to Troy, didn't really catch on, but I feel like the MAC is where bad quarterbacks tend to catch on. Shots fired, Rocky Lombardi. You mentioned it. They bring back their top 4 receivers. They bring back 4 of their 5 offensive linemen. And their defense is always kind of a concern. I feel like for some reason, Eastern Michigan just gets torched by the run every year. They haven't had a good run defense in 4 years. So that obviously is still a concern for me.
So undersized on the D-line all the time.
They're so small, and they give almost 200 yards per game on the ground for 4 straight years. So, but you said the 5.5. You look at the schedule. Eastern Kentucky should be a win. Buffalo at home, UMass at home. They have Akron, which is a good one. So I think it's manageable. That I'm with you. Where I actually like this Eastern Michigan over. They've been to a bowl game in 4 of the last 6 years. One of the ones they missed was 2020, so I don't even really count that. So at 5.5, when you come down and you need a win to go bowling, and you're playing at home against Central Michigan late, I do like that Eastern Michigan over. Ball State, I don't really have a feel on. Like you said, Drew Plitt's gone. They got to break in a new quarterback. At least he has been in the system. He's been the backup for 3 years. One of the nice things about Ball State is they had so many injuries last year that they played 11 different offensive linemen. So at least the guys have a lot of experience. So they have some depth there just out of, the habit of last year. But they're rebuilding a ton on defense, new quarterback. I'm going to stay away from Ball State, but I do like the Eastern Michigan over.
Well, I project both right around 6. Eastern Michigan, to me, if Bryant just stayed. But they seem to every year play close games. There's so many close games. Every one of their games is close. It doesn't matter if they're playing a really good team or – so there's just a lot of variance in their results. I am a little bit worried about maybe some regression for Eastern Michigan. Last year, they were number 1 red zone efficiency team. I think they were 20-28. They had the second fewest penalties per game last year. But if you look back historically under Creighton, extremely good in that regard. So I think they're pretty well coached, which works in their favor. The one and Ball State, I'm right on in the number 2. The one thing that I will say, I mean, with Ball State, their number is over 5.5. They do have 6 winnable. They don't get Akron or Bowling Green, which hurts, but they have 6 winnable home games, right? I mean, Western Michigan, who's down, Murray State, Eastern Michigan, Ohio, and Northern Illinois. So their schedule isn't terrible, so I could see it. But I am worried about both of these special teams. Both of the by my numbers, both of these teams had top 20 special teams last year. That never happens in the MAC. All the MAC special teams are dreadful because these teams don't have depth, right? So then your guys like from in Alabama, the guys on the special teams are really good, but there's no depth on these MAC teams. Their special teams always stink. But last year, Eastern Michigan had top 20 special teams. They lose their stud kicker, their stud punter, and their special teams coach of 6 years. They now have a redshirt freshman kicker and a punter. So 2 redshirt freshmen, kicker and punter. So I think their special teams should drop. And the team that plays a lot of close games and it's the MAC, that can matter. Ball State, I think I had them 8th in special teams last year. It was the only thing they did well with special teams. They had a first team All-MAC punter. He's gone. Their kick returner, punt returner Hall was really good. He's gone. Both kickers are gone, and their special teams coach of 7 years is gone. So they might be the biggest special teams drop year-to-year rankings in the entire nation. They might go to bottom 5. That's how quick it can change the MAC. These close games, close margins. That's the one thing that I worry about both of these teams is the special teams, which you'll see all the time will cost these MAC teams games at the end.
If you did like Ball State, you can get FanDuel has an over 4.5 at -135. And then Eastern Michigan is juice 6.5 at DraftKings, and then they have 5.5 at even money on FanDuel.
Yeah, Eastern Michigan feels like they'll go 6-6.
All right, we're back now with the MAC East, looking at least 2 teams that I think have a puncher's chance to win it, and then trying to identify at least one dark horse to potentially take a long shot on. We're going to start with Miami of Ohio, win total set at 7, plus 375 out there somewhere in the market, plus 425 to win the MAC. 67th offensive projection, 101st defensively. Are they a wolf in sheep's clothing? Because they went 7-6 last year. 4 of those 6 losses came by a grand total of 9 points. We brought this up at the top of the program. Does that mean that Chuck Morton can't win close games, or does it mean they're unlucky? That's for you to determine. 4 starters return on the offensive line to protect Brett Gabbert, 26 TDs, only 6 picks last year. He's going to have to break in some new skill position players, but he does get Mac Hippenhammer back. What a name. And he's not just a great name, but also a big play target. 5 new starters working into the rotation on defense under Bill Brecken. He does add in Michael Dowell, a Michigan State transfer at safety, one of the top defensive recruits in the state of Ohio a few cycles back, hoping to replace Sterling Weatherford. Losing Ivan Pace to Cincy, oh man, that really hurts, as well as the loss of Cameron Butler to UVA. If those guys were both back, or even one of them, I think I'd be a little bit more bullish. But given their losses on defense, I think that leaves the MAC East kind of up for grabs. Non-conference at Kentucky, home against Cincinnati, at Northwestern. I think they'll be more competitive against Cincy. Northwestern, I think, could be a win, although it is in Evanston. So I'll kick it to the group here. This is a team that seemed as though they were on the cusp of something special. They certainly have reliable quarterback play. Where are you on the Red Hawks, Ianiello?
Yeah, like you said, I think when Brett Gabbert is healthy, he's the best quarterback in the MAC. But that's a big if. He's kind of battled injuries the last 2 years. Their backup last year, AJ Mayer, transferred, so that is a big loss for them, just given his history. Their starting running back is expected to be Jalen Bester, who was really good in 2019. But same thing, he missed all of 2020. He played like 2 games in 2021. So I just do have a little bit of concern with their offense, given the injury history. And then their defense, Pace obviously was their best player, but they also just lose a ton of leadership. They lost a ton of graduation. It's not like stars were transferring out. It's just they were an old veteran defense, and a lot of those guys graduated. So they lose a ton of leadership. They lose a ton of depth. So, I obviously love Mac Hippenhammer, former Penn Stater, but I'm staying away from them personally. With Gabbert's injury history, they're a team that I'll back when he's there, but I don't want to invest in him long term because I don't know that he'll be healthy.
Well, if he's not healthy, which has been, as you alluded to, Mike, an issue in the past, their backups with Mayer gone, 1 career pass attempt combined. So it all of a sudden gets really scary. And I think the loss of Sorensen is huge. I mean, he was so reliable, so underrated, just like a third down machine. The receiver Sorensen is gone. And I'm really worried about the defense. I mean, you mentioned some of the losses. Now, they also lost their defensive coordinator, who I think is extremely underrated. Actually went in conference to Ohio, who we'll talk about. But they lost 4 really good defensive ends, one to the NFL. And then now they lost almost everything in the secondary. They might start 4 underclassmen in the secondary with 11 combined career starts. So this pass defense could be really bad. And then you lose Pace at middle linebacker. I have a lot of questions about Miami, Ohio. I project them right around 7, which I think is what their implied win total is right around. So I don't see any value, but I could see it go. And I don't trust Chuck Martin ultimately, but I could see this going south, and especially if Gabbert gets hurt. But there's a lot of holes here that I think it just opens up this division for potential. This division is very weak, by the way. I mean, look at this division. It's Buffalo, Kent State, we're talking about without Crum, Ohio, Akron, Bowling Green, and this Miami Ohio team. So this Miami Ohio team is vulnerable. I had no position on them preseason, but they allow me to be comfortable to throw a dart, which we'll get to.
I agree. I think they're vulnerable. I'm not going to wait too long to get to a team I like. Let's look at Kent State. It's in 5.5 over -130 on their win total, 9-1 to win the MAC, 66 projection on offense, 125th on defense. For my money, I'm a believer in Sean Lewis. He's earned my respect. OC Andrew Souter, I think, keeps this offense in the top 50 conversation, and probably a little bit better because their running game could be special. Colin Sheely coming in for Dustin Crum. He has some real nice wheels to go along with Marquez Cooper and Xavier Williams run behind 4 returning offensive linemen. But the defense was awful. So this, for me, comes down to, what did you do to change that? They went out and they got Jeremiah Johnson, comes in from Northern Iowa. Really nice track record at the FCS rank. I just like the new blood. I like someone who has had success. And given the fact that they were in the 120s in meaningful metrics last year, if he gets them close to 100, I think this team's going to go over their win total. I think this team is going to win the East. And the only real concern I have, what is up with their athletic department at Washington, at Oklahoma, at Georgia? Guys, like, I understand the paycheck games, but like, give your kids a break. I know they slipped in Long Island. Second time we talked about the Sharks on the podcast, but like, they're all on the road. They're all brutal. You're going to get physically beat up potentially by Washington and Georgia. So if they can survive it and come out of it without any key injuries to key playmakers, I'm bullish on the Golden Flashes. I think this offense, I think, no disrespect to Dustin Crum, he was a great MAC quarterback, highly reliable, but I think they're going to be able to keep this going. I know, what are your thoughts on the Golden Flashes? Is the defense just so bad that you're like, I can't put any weight behind them?
No, because they were bad last year. I'm with you. This line at 5.5 is disrespectful to Sean Lewis. I think Sean Lewis is an excellent coach. You can get a flat 5 at DraftKings. I'll just use it. I think it's disrespectful to him. You mentioned it. Yeah, Crum was awesome, but honestly, the best part about him last year, especially, was his legs. You know, they were, what were they? 3rd in the country in rushing, and like you said, they bring back Cooper, they bring back Williams, and Sheely is getting a ton of hype in camp. His teammates love him. They're comparing him to Crum. He's got a cannon arm. He's freaky athletic. He looks more athletic than Crum did, to be honest with you. So I don't know. They bring back Dante Cephas, who was, all MAC receiver last year. I don't know that this offense will take much of a step back, if at all. They return 3 offensive line, and they fill the 2 holes with, transfer from Michigan and a transfer from Rutgers. So anytime you're bringing in Big Ten offensive linemen, I'm going to, appreciate that. And like you mentioned, yeah, the defense is a concern, but they sucked last year and they went to the MAC championship. So I don't necessarily think they're going to be worse. The schedule is a concern, but at 5.5, you're telling me I think this team's going to drop from the conference title game to out of a bowl. I don't see it. I don't think the offense takes as much of a step back without Crum as people are making it out to seem. So I'm going to play over 5.5 with Kent State as well.
What are your projections saying, Stuckey?
I disagree. And I'm still mad at Kent State for last year for blowing that MAC title game. But I I think they actually lost 3 starters in the offensive line, but you guys are just disrespecting Crum. He was the MAC player of the year, and yeah, he looks great. She looks great in camp. Guess what? He's playing the Kent State defense every day. Of course, he looks great. They have a new defensive coordinator who's moving them to a 3-3-5. So the hope is that schematically they can't get much worse. That they get a little better, but they lost 2 good linebackers. I think Clark, who plays like their freak linebacker position / safety, he got hurt in spring. He's out for the year. They lost both safeties, their first team All-MAC cornerback. Now, I know the defense wasn't good, so does it really matter? But somewhat worried about some of their losses. But I think you're disrespecting Crum. I'm not also sold on the offensive line. I think there's some questions there. And what is the ceiling on their wins? 7? Like, it's 8 at most. You're going to lose at Washington, Oklahoma, and Georgia. And then at Toledo, I have as a loss. And at Miami, Ohio, tough game. I mean, they're really not going to drop any with their defense? I mean, they're going to be in shootouts. So, yeah, I project them at 5-4-8, I think. So I'm right at 5.5. And like the floor is probably pretty low, and the ceiling is also low. I'm sorry. The floor is like 4 or 5, and then the ceiling is like 7 or 8. So like it's going to come down to like at Bowling Green and at Buffalo at the end of the year. So like, no thanks.
At least
the Crum disrespect. The Crum disrespect, man. Jesus.
The projections, at least from our buddy Joe DeSalva over at CFF, the college fantasy football rankings, he does mention that depending on how you evaluate returning starters based on snaps, it could be 4 returning starters. They also have a Michigan and a Rutgers transfer coming in on the offensive line. So they may, I just think they're going to be good enough for an offense that has been so focused on it in recent years. And Shealy, I think, is an upgrade as a runner. So yes, they could have some pains throwing the football with him in his first year, but with so much of the focal point of their offense running through the running game, I don't know. We'll agree to disagree on that one. How about this? Why don't
they still the same kicker, by the way? They can't kick off. They can't kick it off. The opposing team starts at the 40 every single time. I mean, it's crazy. Like they score a touchdown quick, they kick it off, and the opposing team starts at the 40-yard line because they have a kicker who can't get the ball past the 25. I mean, it was insane if you look at their kickoff stats last year. Every time the team's starting at midfield. You already have a terrible defense. That's why all their games they play Eastern Michigan, it's 50. It's like 55-52. It's going to be like I'm not investing in Kent State win total.
All right, I'll tee you up for a team you're investing in, and you tell me why all these negatives are being overstated. So Ohio coming in 5.5 is their win total, 20-1 to win the MAC, 89th on offense, 110th on defense. The Frank Solich era is clearly over. Things were a mess last year in Athens. 3-9, only returned 5 on offense. Curtis Rourke is not his brother, certainly not a difference maker at quarterback. The O-line could be very good, but who's going to make plays? They were 105th in scoring last year. Defense couldn't stop the run, so I'm not impressed with the fact that they bring back 5 starters in their front 7 because they couldn't get it done. And they play at Penn State and Iowa State early. Does that force their hand with Rourke? Does that mean a quarterback change to C.J. Harris, a former 3-star out of the state of Michigan? For me, that's a lot of negatives, but I think you have some good things to say about the Bobcats, so let me hear them.
Yeah, I mean, look, it can't get any worse than last year. I mean, last year and by the way, going into last year, they were 5-1 to win the MAC. And now I got them 25-1 2 days ago. That price is ridiculous in this division, which is completely wide open. Last year they had to deal with a coaching change. That's behind them. Everything went wrong with them. The 2-4 in one possession games. They were at 120th in turnover margin. I like to hire the defensive coordinator my Ohio defensive coordinator with a very experienced defense. They bring back 4 defensive backs who started at least 9 games. Thompson, their middle linebacker, comes back from injury. Linebacker really strong. And then they bring back 8 of their top 9 defensive linemen. It's a really experienced defense with, I think, a scheme improvement and a good coordinator, but they're taking away from one of their competitors in the division, Miami of Ohio. And you mentioned the offensive line, a lot more experience, should be a little bit better this year. I just think that they were last year 5-1. And we just talked about Ball State. They won the MAC in dominant fashion, and then last year looked like the worst team in the country. These things change quick in the MAC, quick. So I just think 25-1 is an outrageous price to come out of. All I need them is to come out of this division. So all they gotta do, can they win at Kent State in a 55-52 game? Because Kent State kicks it to the 50 every time? Sure. And then they win that game, and then all of a sudden, who knows? You beat Akron at home, you beat NIU at home, you beat Buffalo at home, Bowling Green at home, you win the division. Like that's how quick these things can change in the MAC. We've seen it time and time again. I think this price is crazy. From 5-1 to 25-1 in one season in the MAC in just a hard division. So I think it's a dart worth throwing. And I mean, I'm not going to sit here and preach about how great this team is, but I think it's just disrespecting the market price wise.
I mean, Stuckey sounds like a drive time radio host in Athens, Ohio. Just going through the schedule. Northern, win. Buffalo, win. At Miami, Ohio, win. All right, so what are your thoughts here, Ianiello? This is a pass for me just because they
Miami,
were
Ohio,
so
none of it is a win. But they just have to split. You split at Kent. You win at Kent or Miami. And by the way, Gabbert gets hurt. Miami, Ohio then becomes a mess. Anyone can beat Kent State. They're all their games are going to be 55-54. And that's assuming that these camp reports on Shear are all correct. But yeah, I know.
Yeah, this is a stay away from me. Although the one I will defend Stuckey when, like you said, at the end of the day, if you played the Mega Millions last week, spending $5 on Ohio is probably a safer bet than the Mega Millions. So, for that price, you're throwing a dart in a division where it's all just blind darts for the most part. So I don't necessarily hate the future dart throw. I wouldn't bet their win total or anything like that.
No.
I don't believe in Curtis Rourke. The one defense I will say for how bad they looked last year is Frank Solich didn't retire until July 14th. So it was so late in the year. And then they were just, an absolute mess after that. I mean, they lost to Duquesne. So I guess, having the full off season under Albin will help them. But I just really have no feelings on this team.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and bundle together these next two teams because I'm confused about the differential in terms of their odds to win the MAC outright. Buffalo with a win total of 5, 15-1 range to win it, 92nd on offense, 102nd on defense, and SP plus projections. This team likes to run the ball. No shock there. They only return one starter on the line. Ron Cook has upside, but the only real experience he has is in the return game. I think he's got like 400 career rushing yards. Mike Washington could get touches in there as well, but Matt Myers is back at quarterback and 4 TDs, 5 picks last year. Defense could be okay. Six back on that side of the ball. A lot of new faces in the secondary, which was their strength. At Maryland, at Coastal, at Eastern Michigan early. I'm out on the Bulls here, but the team right behind them, at least in the projections, Bowling Green, 4.5 of their win total. I know that Colin Wilson's probably moving closer to his audio speaker. He's bullish on the Falcons, 50-1 to win the MAC at some books. 108th on defense, 108th in offense of projections, 77th on defense. The question is, can they just pull it all together? They got 17 returning starters. The defense was great against the pass last year, 9th in yards allowed through the air. Darren Anders could win MAC Defensive Player of the Year. They have 5 preseason all MAC defenders, first or second team selections. The offense has all their skill position players back surrounding Matt McDonald. I know he wasn't very good last year, but at least they have that continuity. And in terms of their schedule, yes, it's a challenging non-con at UCLA, home against Marshall, at Mississippi State. But when I look at who they play and where they play them within the conference, home against Miami, Ohio, home against Kent, at Central, at Toledo, I think this is definitely worth a flyer. If 20-1 or 25-1 on Ohio gets your chili running hot, Bowling Green at 50-1, why not? I'm finally buying into your theory that everyone potentially stinks on this side of the MAC, Stuckey. So where are you on Bowling Green?
Bowling Green at Ohio to close the year, by the way, could be the difference. Ohio, that Athens home field advantage. Yeah, I mean, Bowling Green, look, you have to hand it to what they did last year. And a lot of it was Eric Lewis, their defensive coordinator. Or maybe it's just getting rid of Van Gorder, who might be the worst defensive coordinator in the history of college football. Really shows you how bad he was. But, yeah, it's a really experienced team, one of the most in the country as far as returning production. I think they're number 1 in the country in returning offensive production. They only lost 11 Letterman. I mean, a couple of years ago, this team was basically 95% freshmen. They do get 3 tough West draws, and then They finished facing 2 teams off byes, then back-to-back road games. So I don't really love their schedule. How much better can their defense really get is another thing that I am thinking about. I mean, like for a MAC team, their defense was really good last year, and it started to fall off towards the end of the year. I don't trust McDonald. This offense still just frightens me. I don't have any opinion on Bowling Green. With Buffalo, I'm pretty close on projections. I can see why people love them, but I could also see them going 2-10. In regards to Buffalo, it's under or nothing with Buffalo. Now it's a higher variance team because there's so many transfers. They could start, I think, 13 transfers. I mean, they lost their quarterback, running back, and right tackle unexpectedly in spring to the transfer portal. Not good. Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to project how they're going to look, like even their starters. I think really they're going to have 12. I think I have projected 12 transfer starters. Only 5 home games. Yeah, I mean, what do I project for them? Their win total's 5.5. I project them 4-8. Almost bet the under on them. It's under or nothing. But I don't really have any hot takes on Bowling Green or Buffalo. Gun to my head, the third win total that I would have bet that was close was Buffalo. But the variance with all the transfers kept me away, and I just didn't have enough edge to overcome that.
What do you think, Mike? Do you have any strong takes on the Bulls or the Falcons in this spot?
Hey, Colin Wilson. Oh, Bowling Green has a lot of returning starters. Yeah, is Matt McDonald one of them? Yeah, no, thank you. Then he stinks. Bowling Green. The other thing too that is sneaky a big loss for Bowling Green is they lost their offensive coordinator Terry Malone, who is now an offensive analyst at LSU. Well, we talk about how much I hate Scott Leffler. I called him LaFleur last year, I'm pretty sure. Scott Leffler. Well, remember against Buffalo last year when Leffler got ejected, and in 18 minutes after he got ejected and Terry Malone started calling plays, they scored 28 points, which is still the most they've scored in any full game in 2 seasons. So he's now gone. He scored more in 18 minutes than Leffler's done in 2 years. So I don't believe in him. I don't believe in Matt McDonald. I don't care how much they're returning. If he's one of them, I'm out on the Falcons. Buffalo
Also, there's an All-American kicker, by the way. I know I'm talking about special teams way too much, but they had an All-American kicker last year.
You have to talk special teams in the MAC because it's the most variance of any conference where it can make or break games, and it's the only reason you watch it is to watch someone.
Field goals. By the way, field goals will decide almost all of these win totals. I bet.
And they're usually playing in 20-mile-an-hour winds in front of 400 people.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere, Michigan. But Buffalo's. I'm with you guys. Where especially Stuckey, where I think I don't have any action on them either way because I could see it going either way. You look at your returning production numbers, and to me they're like a little misleading because Matt Myers was actually their starting quarterback to start the season in 2019. He got hurt. Van Treese takes over. He keeps the job for 2 years. So Myers this is his 4th year in the system. He's much more mobile than Van Treese was, which I do like given. That's something too. Their offensive line, the turnover is a little weird because you look at it and, they're listed as returning 1 offensive line starter, but all their starters are seniors. So they do have a ton of depth. You look down their depth chart, it's, senior. They're starting like, I think 8 seniors on offense. So I do like that.
Second year new schemes too.
Yep. They're another team that lost their coach last year. They bring in, like you said, they did a great job in transfers. They bring in Justin Marshall from Louisville, Booby Curry from Arizona. They actually just signed the highest rated recruiting class in school history. So they're doing a good job there. Defense does lose a ton, but they bring back James Patterson at linebacker. Besides being my mother's favorite author, he's also been at Buffalo for what seems like 7 years. So I love having him back in the middle of that defense. But I'm still not sure what they're going to be. I think they actually could be better than people think, just given how old they are. But they're probably stay away from me.
High variance team.
All right, let's round out the East here with Akron, 2.5 for their win total, 75-1 to win the MAC. 124th on offense, matching 124th on defense in SP plus projections. Well, let's get this started. Welcome back to the MAC, Joe Moorhead. You know, you got 15 returning starters, both specialists. DJ Irons, I could see him flourishing in this system. It's probably going to take time and reps, but he has the athleticism to do it. They certainly have the pieces to run the ball a lot better in 2022. And they had multiple Power 5 transfers coming in at wide receiver and tight ends. The defense brings back 3 or 4 starters in the secondary that finished 55th in the nation against the pass. If they get any pass rush at all, they could actually be pretty good on that side of the ball. So it just comes down to the schedule. There's only one auto win. It's St. Francis, PA. You know, the flash is there. Other than
Are
that,
we sure about that auto win?
I mean, I'm not betting my life on that one. The rest, there's certainly auto losses at Michigan State, at Tennessee, home against Central, at Kent, Miami of Ohio at home, at Northern Illinois. So that leaves, in my eyes, 5 toss-up games. At Liberty, home against Bowling Green, at Ohio, Eastern Michigan at home, at Buffalo. This is a no thanks for me. It could be on a weekly basis if they, still get, priced out the way that they were playing last year and they're catching, 38.5 points and stuff like that. I think they could have a little punch on offense and maybe they don't give up all the explosive plays on defense, but that's as much optimism as I can squeeze out of this stone. What do you think, Stuckey?
At Liberty, you have as a toss-up game, by the way. That's pretty generous. I think it'll be like
isn't it Brewer? Charlie Brewer's the quarterback at Liberty, so I'll make that a toss-up.
I mean, don't be 3 touchdown underdogs. I mean, here's the most Mac take of all time. I can't get I love the Moorhead signing. They're actually going to have a real offense. I love what he did in the transfer portal. They're also really experienced. They're bringing 16. They have 16 returning starters, but they might start 13 transfers. A lot of Power 5 transfers. So high variance. If everything goes right, it all comes together. Who knows? Again, it's the MAC, 50-1 Central Michigan. No one gave them a shot. A couple years ago, they win it. So I don't see 3 wins on the schedule. But if you want to if you find 100-1 out there and you want to have fun, just for couch change. So yeah, I can't find 3 wins, but maybe bet them to win the MAC because this division. And who knows? Everything would have to go right. I love the Moorhead signing. And you got Bowling Green to start conference play at home. You win that game, and who knows? Then you win the divisional list on this division. Kidding, partially. So, yeah, if you want to throw a dart just for shits and giggles on Akron, and you're betting on everything coming together, and then this division just being the clusterfuck that it is, sure, why not? But I project them, I think, right around 2.4. Let me see. 2.6. So, okay, I show a little value in the over, not enough to bet it. But I just don't see 3 wins. I can't feel confident in it, and it's not enough edge to bet the over. But 100-1, why not?
I mean, you heard it here first, everybody. # fear the ruse. Stuckey's in on them winning the MAC at 100-1. Ianiello, can you even play the over 2.5? Forget about the conference.
I definitely can't play the conference. Absolutely, I'm playing over 2.5, and I'll be the first to admit. Okay, maybe I'm biased because Joe Moorhead is responsible for the happiest day of my life, other than my wedding. I guess now that I'm married, I have to say my wedding day. So the second happiest day of my life, 2016 Big Ten title game. I love this signing. I think Joe Moorhead is a phenomenal coach, and I do think he's going to turn this program around. 3 wins, you mentioned it. St. Francis, that's a win. They beat Bowling Green 3 or 4 years in a row. I hate Bowling Green. I'm giving that a win. And then they just got to win one other game. You mentioned it. Eastern Michigan at home, at Buffalo. The MAC they could beat Northern Illinois. The MAC is so weird that you never really know what's going to happen. And you mentioned DJ Irons, mobile, 6'6", 215. He's huge. I'll actually be honest. I would be all over this over if Zach Gibson was still there because I loved him. I thought he looked really, really good throwing the ball. Him transferring was a huge bummer for me. But, Joe Moorhead, when he had Trace McSorley, another mobile quarterback, you saw his offense absolutely flourished. They return all 5 offensive line stars. They return their top 3 running backs. They add Cam Wiley from Minnesota. They lose Mumfield, but they basically swapped him out for Shockey Jacques-Louis, who is maybe the most fun name to say in college football, I would say. So just Shockey Jacques-Louis all day long. They return 16 of their 18 top tacklers. And you mentioned what Moorhead's done in the transfer portal. They had a running back from Minnesota. They had a wide receiver from LSU, wide receiver from Pitt, tight end from West Virginia, safety from West Virginia, cornerback from Mississippi State, a DN from Syracuse, DN from Mississippi State. So they've added so many Power 5 pieces to plug in. And sure, you think it might take them a while to gel, but I think they can gel on the fly against St. Francis. They're going to lose to Michigan State and Tennessee anyway. So what better way to kind of, I don't want to say ease in by getting your doors blown off, but you don't really have to worry about like trying to win the game. You can try to get your pieces right and basically run 2 practices against much better competition. And then, Liberty, and then you go right into, like you said, Bowling Green at Ohio. So I think they can get to 3 wins because I'm giving them St. Francis. I'm giving them Bowling Green. And then I got to get one more win. And I just trust Joe Moorhead enough to improve this offense and figure it out. So give me the Zips over 2.5.
All right, we're gonna go.
Where's by the way, where's Tion Dollard? What if him and Gibson were back? I don't know if Tion Dollard's in jail or what, but you're saying Akron can win all these games, and you're saying the upside to take the 100 to 1 with all the Moorhead love. You're just giving them a win at Northern Illinois, Bowling Green. You said they could win them all, and you won't take a flyer on the 100 to 1.
Fine.
Just
Fine.
hop in. Just hop into the kangaroo pouch. Get on this bandwagon and let's go. Like I don't know what the
I'm
problem
in.
is. I know.
Zip it
Okay.
up, baby. 100 to 1. Jomo, baby.
Okay, there we go. Now it's time for a quick lightning round to wrap this up. Your favorite win total and your pick to actually win the conference. It could be Akron if you want it to be. I'm going to go simply because I really like what they potentially could have on offense. It's Eastern Michigan over 5.5 on their win total. I think Powell finally finds a home. Wide receivers, like I said, are great. Hassan Badoon is my guy, my favorite player, and they brought in so many G5 and P5 transfers in the mix on defense. I think they are not going to finish anywhere close to their 123rd ranking projection SP plus on that side of the ball. So go over on the Eagles. And then I like Kent State. It may require an anonymous phone call to say, if you're going to kick off and not make it to the 25, just do an onside kick every single time. Let's get 10% of those and count them as turnovers. So I'm going to go Kent State 9-10 to 1 to win the conference, depending at which book you book it at. I'm on the Golden Flashes. How about you, Ianiello?
Yeah, I also like the Eastern Michigan over. I like the Toledo over, but I assume Stuckey's going to take that. So yeah, I'll go with Akron over 2.5 for my favorite over. Screw it. Go with the Zips. I don't have really any futures. I think, it sounds boring, but Toledo plus 380. I'll go with the chalk. I think this is the year. I was on them last year and they kind of disappointed me. So, when you bet a team and then they don't win, they almost always come back and win it the following year. So I'll just double down and I'll take Toledo. Plus 380 is not a bad number for the favorite.
All right, Stuck, you had a lot of spicy takes. You gave us a mountain of special teams information. Does that factor into your favorite plays here?
Well, yeah, with Western Michigan, of course, the special teams are going to be awful. It's always, with all the losses on the offensive line, LB, Sky Moore, new coordinator, and the defense losing what they lost in the secondary at defensive end. I think it's going to be a long year for Western Michigan. Struggle to get the bowl eligibility. Cannot see 7 wins on the horizon. So love that under. And then Toledo over, as I mentioned before, have them as double-digit favorites in 8 games, over 8. Just take care of business in those 8. You're at 8. Big positive regression candidate with penalties, 4th down conversions, close games. They're 0-5 in 1-possession games last year. Defense should be loaded. Daquan Finn has the reins of the offense. I think Toledo, who I have favored in 11 games, gets the 9 or 10 wins with ease. And my pick to win the MAC, let's get crazy as always. Ohio Bobcats, baby.
Or Akron.